Hi, welcome to the show. If you're a new listener, thanks for finding me. And if you're a regular listener, thanks so much for your loyalty. This month, I have a special series planned. It's on women changing the world through money. And to launch the series, I'm delighted to host a very special guest, Denise Duffield-Thomas. Denise is the money mindset mentor for the new wave of entrepreneurs. Her books, Lucky Bitch, Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and her latest release from Hay House, Chillpreneur, give a fresh and funny roadmap to create an outrageously successful life and business. Denise helps women create wealth through her mindset courses and practical wisdom on releasing money blocks. Denise inspires and entertains while she teaches, and I hope you'll enjoy her every bit as much as I do. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. As you know from the introduction, I have Denise Duffield-Thomas with us today, and I couldn't be happier. Denise is going to share with us both her background as a money mindset mentor and maybe even a few insights and tips. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to connect with you.
I'm excited about it too. And for those of my listeners who may not have been aware until you said that, you're from Australia, correct?
I am, and I forget that I'm Australian. I know that sounds really strange, but I live in an online world. When people ask me where I live, I think Facebook. That's where I live. And I forget that we have different accents, but I love the fact that technology has brought us all together. So it's almost like us as entrepreneurs, we almost have our own little world.
It's true. That's a wonderful way of saying it too, because you and I were chatting briefly as I was fussing with some of the details of technology about how, in some ways, it seems like we at least one-sidedly know each other when we don't. And that's a common part of this world. There's the illusion of it, and yet we are able to come together. So you're quite international in your reach of your programs. You have several courses. You have um, 3 courses right now, but I think of you as having more courses because you have programs that you don't sell, and yet you still teach through your free programs and resources. Do you think of it that way as well?
I've really struggled with this being an entrepreneur about having shiny object syndrome. And I love creating stuff. So, what I've been able to do is I have a motto that suits me in my business, which is all roads lead to money boot camp. All roads lead to money boot camp. And then I allow myself to create things on the front end, as I call them. Um, Things like I've got a free pricing course and a free money blocks course and a few things like that. But I try not to create a lot of different paid programs on the back end. And that has really helped me as a shiny object person and it's really helped me, I think, too, to really deepen into the work that I offer people, but still gives me some freedom to create.
That's really brilliant, because I think one of the challenges is we typically find the combination of creativity and productivity are hard to balance, and you've managed to do it both so beautifully.
And that's not to say that I still don't feel the urge to throw everything out in my business and start again, because I absolutely do. It happens all the time, and even if not thinking about throwing things out, I still am tempted to complicate things. And this is actually the topic of my next book, which is coming out in February, is how do we simplify and make things easier for ourselves? And that's actually the thing that we often resist the most, because if we bring it back to money and money blocks, we have this very underlying story, especially in American culture, is you have to work really hard to make money, and you have to be very busy and you have to hustle. And so when things are easy, we resist it. And also, if we make things easy for ourselves, sometimes we have to watch that. What's that thing about the devil makes work for idle hands?
Yeah.
You know that quote.
Mhm.
And as entrepreneurs, we have to be careful, right? That if we make things too easier for ourselves, we actually do have to watch our mindset of trying to then overcomplicate things. So I really try and strike the balance on that.
That makes sense. Why and I wanna get back to your book because I saw the advance on it is called Chillpreneur, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
So I wanna get back to that, but first, I wanna hear the backstory on why money? Why is money
Mm,
the road that you went down with your teaching?
mhm. I think when people look at someone's business and they think, "Oh, it all came together so beautifully, and it was so smooth." And I share a lot about some of my early businesses, and I share a lot about one of my businesses called Raw Brides, which was, one of those things people go, "Raw Brides? What's Raw Brides?" It was raw, as in raw food, and brides as in weddings, and it was one of my early businesses, where I lost weight for my wedding because I went on a raw food diet, and so I was like, "I can help people with this." Um, so people think that even that's my beginning of entrepreneurship, and that was 2009. And it's really not even that wasn't even the beginning. That was probably one of my better formed businesses. But even from a very young age, I just wanted to help people, and I
Mm,
had no real role model for what that would look like, except for Oprah. So every day after school, I would watch Oprah. And then the next day at school, I would tell my friends the lessons that Oprah taught me. So I just wanted to help people. And I remember even being like 10 years old, and one of my cousins like was wetting the bed, and I sat down with him and I was like, let's go through a meditation where we visualize like, closing up that where the we comes from. I don't know what it was, but all I wanted to do was help people. I didn't know about coaching. I didn't know about, being a speaker. None of those things really existed in my world, but I just wanted to help people. So a lot of my early businesses were about trying to help people in various ways. I almost set up like a dating coaching business, and I wrote a book about dating tips. Especially when online dating came out, and I was like, "Oh, I've done online dating. I can help people with this." And I think that was all of my early journeys was, "Oh my god, I've done this. I can help someone with this." So I finally discovered the world of coaching, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is what this thing is called. It's called coaching. I can do this." So I started doing life coaching, and I coached on anything that people came to me. Sure, I can help you with that. Sure, I can help you with that, which is very common, I find, in our world, that we were often the go-to girl
mhm.
in our family and friendship group, right? They would come to us to help solve their problems. And so that's how my early coaching started. And then I was like, I actually really love talking to entrepreneurs. So I shifted to become just a coach for entrepreneurs. And then I was like, I actually really like coaching women. So I shifted my marketing to be I coach women entrepreneurs. And then I was like, you know what? Everyone who I coach has a problem with money. Maybe I should explore this. And the thing though, that even that, Jen, sounded like, oh, so easy. I felt the calling to work with money, and I rejected it because I said, I can't do this. I don't want to be a financial advisor. I don't want to have to go back to
Mm,
college and get a degree in finances because that's my first thing. I thought
mhm,
no one's going to listen to my viewpoint on money because I'm not a financial expert.
mhm.
So I said, no thanks. No thanks, universe. And it was so weird that I just kept on getting this. It was just a calling. It really was a
Mhm.
calling. You should talk about money. Just talk about it in your own way. And then people would say, can you talk to us about money? And I'd go, no, I can't. And so finally, I said, universe, I'll talk about money, but here are my conditions.
Mhm.
It's so weird.
Yeah,
Universe, who am I talking to? I
yeah.
said, it has to be really easy, and I have to do it my way. And if people like it, that's great. If they don't, then I'll move on. And luckily, it became an area where people wanted to hear from me. And I think the thing that I got in myself was like, oh, I don't have to be Susie Orman
Right.
for this to count, I can just tell people what I know about money. And great lesson from Oprah, right? Where she says, "This is what I know for sure." And I just went, "Oh my God, I'm just going to tell people what I know for sure. I don't have to pretend to be the expert on money. I don't have to pretend to be a financial advisor because I'm not." And I just gave myself um, the permission to be a contributor instead of being a guru. And that made all the difference.
Yeah, and you filled such a empty spot because there are experts, and there's wonderful, wonderful. You mentioned Susie Orman; she's a wonderful financial expert, and that fills a great need for us. M- But mindset is a need that perhaps because of the fear, you can speak to it much more than I can because I'm not the mindset mentor. You are. Um, but didn't really exist in the way that you have provided it. And it is something that is a common lacking criteria. So even if women were aware that they needed it, there wasn't a place to go or resources to find, which you have provided. It's brilliant.
Well, there was, but not many people knew about them. I credit one of my mentors, Kendall Summerhawk. She
Oh,
introduced
okay.
that concept to me, but she she also coaches on other things too. So I thought, well, I love this piece that Kendall is doing, and I think knowing about her gave me permission to go, oh, why don't I just focus on this one part? And now I see a lot of people talking about it, which I'm thrilled about. And
Mhm.
I don't think that I discovered this at all, but I just think it's so wonderful that so many more people are talking about money mindset as just as important as learning about marketing or learning about technology in your business. It's I think the most crucial part because once you have your mindset sorted, you can Google most things to do with
Mhm.
business. There's not much that someone hasn't created a YouTube video on, you
Right.
know, but but without the mindset, you're gonna sabotage yourself. You're going to get psyched out. You're gonna get scared, which all of us do. And
Mhm.
without that support and the tools to move through it, those normal things, that's very normal to have fear. Then that's when you're going to get stuck, and you're not going to fulfill your potential.
Yeah. What I'm curious if you think there's something, I don't want to use the word magical because I don't mean it literally, but do you think there's something special or significant about money as a medium that drew you to it?
When I look back, I always enjoyed talking about money as a kid, and I think it was just um, one of my detours as an entrepreneur was I would go and work in corporate every now and again, and then I would quit 6 months later. It was a wonderful cycle. But on one of those detours, I worked for an organization that did social responsibility consulting to companies. And one of my jobs was to write a report for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And it was about helping small and medium sized enterprises, SMEs, to market sustainability in their countries. And I think working on that report made me realize even more that money is a tool for good, but only if good people have money. And that so many problems of the world already have solutions. It's just a distribution of resources problem. And I read about what happens to countries when women have more money.
Mhm.
It it raises the fortunes of everyone in the country. It literally increases the GDP of countries when women have more money. So I
Mhm.
think that changed me and gave me a very strong social kind of conscience that maybe if I hadn't had that experience, maybe I would have gone into the more internet markety space of, hey, let's just be rich
Mhm.
so we can have a Lamborghini, or let's just
Mhm.
be rich for whatever. I think now my work is so inspired by that. And I don't work with women in developing countries. I don't work in the charity sector. I actually very much focus on entrepreneurs because I also know what happens. Sorry, there's a truck going past. I also know what happens when entrepreneurs, like us, have more money.
Mhm,
We hire women.
mhm,
We support causes that are important to us. We have excess energy and abundance.
mhm,
So when something happens like California wildfires or a mudslide in India, we have resources to help. And, we buy from other women. It's not just about disasters. I think I look around my office and I see art and pictures and resources created by women. And that's
mhm.
what we do. We increase the abundance for everyone. So for me, that's where money comes in. It's not money for the sake of buying extra stuff. It's money to change the world. It's money to change the planet. And I'm very passionate about that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so in that way, it's very different. It gets more from the mindset as into money as a tool is how I see it. Yeah.
Definitely.
And you're helping people, but I always think of if we take individual accountability and whatever accountability needs to be taken, we really are changing the world one by one. So, it fits that
Absolutely.
model as I think of it. What was you referred to early businesses and all, but what was your earliest inkling of a money-based business?
So, I was a very creative child, very creative, and I remember um, buying wetsuit material, like wetsuit remnants, and they were fluorescent because it was 80s, late 80s, I'm guessing. And I made bracelets out of them. And then I rode around town on my bike and I would see a kid and I would say, "Hey, look at my amazing bracelet. Would you want to buy one?" And I just look back at that now and I think, "Oh my God, I wish I had that courage now, right? To sell my
Wow. Yeah.
yes.
I'm impressed.
Yes, but here's the thing. I remember going to school and telling my teacher about this in front of the whole class. And it was like my news, like when you do
Mhm.
news.
Mhm.
And the teacher started interrogating me. And the teacher said, "So what are you selling your bracelets for?" And I said, $2. And he said, "And how much does it cost to buy your material?" And I remember I would buy the material in a bag for like $2.
Mhm.
And the teacher really made, in front of everybody, I remember thinking, "Oh my God, I'm not good at money and I'm not good at numbers."
Oh,
And
no.
so, yes. And so that experience, it really, it created a lot of, and to this day, if you ask me to do a very simple sum, I get out my calculator because I'm not sure. And I see, my husband, he can do sums so quickly in his head, and I'm more of a words person than a numbers person. So I think even from an early age, I knew I was an entrepreneur, but I had a very underlying story that I could not make money out of it, that I shouldn't make money out of it, and also that it was just something I just wasn't good at numbers.
Isn't that interesting? Because your teacher could have used that.
Mm.
Who knows what was behind the whole thing? Maybe he was jealous for Pete's sake. I mean, that's an impressive child who takes neoprene bags and makes bracelets out of them. He could have been looking at that and thinking, wow, I wish I'd thought of it. I mean, who knows, right? That's fascinating. So now and you have a family, a young child just recently born and other children. What message are you just so firm about instilling in them?
So you think you solve your problem, right? You're like, "Oh, I'm really good at money." And then I had a kid, and so this is my first child, Willow, who's now 4.5, and I gave her some coins at the farmer's market because I thought I'm going to teach her about buying things with her own money. And so, first thing she was like 2, right? The first thing she did was she went to put it in her mouth. And I said, "Don't do that. Money's dirty." And I went, "Oh my God, this is the origin of so many of our money problems." The very first message that most of us have ever had is don't touch money, it's dirty.
Mhm.
And of course, we don't want kids to put money in their mouths. Of course we don't. But if you think of that as the very earliest message that we've ever had about money, it just explains so much. It
Right.
explains so much. So what I decided to do instead, I went, you know what? I might not be able to turn my kids into entrepreneurs, and that's okay. I would love if I had some entrepreneurs. But what I can try and do is give them a neutral feeling about money. Even
Mhm.
if I don't give them a positive feeling, if all I do is neutral. So I neutralized my voice. I didn't make it a thing. And I said, hey, we don't put money in our mouths. We take care of our money. And it just became it just neutralized it. And
Mhm.
now, Willow's 4.5. She said that to her brother when her brother started trying to put money in his mouth. She said, hey, Georgie, we take care of our money. We don't put money in our mouth. And so that's all I'm really doing with our kids. I'm not sitting down and doing lessons, money mindset lessons, because I know that they're just going to pick it up from
Yeah.
how I am around money and how I talk about money. I think my next book after Chillpreneur will be about motherhood and business and babies and all that kind of stuff. But they really just listen to what we're doing. And if you talk about money in positive ways and you embrace money as a positive tool, that's all you need to do. They'll pick that up.
They pick up more of what we say, what we don't say anyway. If you could say all the perfect quote unquote words, but if you're demonstrating through your actions other things anyway, they're going to pay attention to the unsaid. So I hear what you're saying. Um, you've mentioned a couple things that aren't strictly in line with money, and yet they're still teaching because you've mentioned from the beginning that you wanted to help people. How do you see that thread of helping people continuing through all your work?
Well, the thing that I do try and do is remind myself that I don't have to help everyone with everything. And that's tricky, right? Especially again, if you've been a go-to girl or if you're a problem solver. So, perfect example, right? So, my book, this is one of my books, Get Rich Lucky Bitch.
Hmm.
I also wrote a book called Get Hitched Lucky Bitch about how to manifest your soulmate. You might know that, Jen, that I did that. And so, for me, even though the thread is about helping people, I have to remind myself that it's okay not to solve every problem for everyone. And, I wrote that book. I paid for graphic design to do it. I self published it. And I literally, the day that I was going to release it, I went, what am I doing? This isn't my problem to solve. And I often say to people, read my book about money and just substitute anything that you want in there because it is the same work. It absolutely is the same work. But that doesn't mean that I have to, do that in my business and in my life. When I go forward and I think of the things that I want to do in the future, is it always going to be money? I don't know. I really don't. And even I even say to people when they join my money boot camp, I say to them sometimes, this isn't about money.
Hmm.
Every single tool that I do in this boot camp, if I really break it down, is about self love and acceptance. That's it.
Hmm.
Giving yourself permission. And that's why sometimes I don't get too involved in someone says, what should I price my program? Because I think it's not about that. It's about giving yourself permission to want what you want, giving yourself permission that it's okay for you to charge people. And then you'll figure out the pricing. But sometimes I have to come at it from a few different angles. I'll go, come to my free workshop on pricing, but it's not really about pricing. It's really about self-love and acceptance, but through the lens of money. And then the lovely, I guess, you know, like byproduct of that is that people then charge more and make more and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I still just want to help people. That's all I want to do.
But you do need a lens and money. I mean, people aren't, in my experience, they're not always as comfortable. The wide population, in my experience, isn't as popular with the terms self love and acceptance, where more people will seek help and support for money or money issues or money
I
problems
agree.
or money blocks. And thank goodness, as a population, we will look for help for that because that is, like you say, a lens that we can work with. Um, and I agree with your perspective and explanation about it because when I look at your work, what I see is that your approach is so much more than just that one angle. It goes into the real depth of self development and self growth, and that money happens to be the access point. Um, so you could, like you say, substitute any lens and it would be fine. Um, get hitched, that works. Um, anything. I personally love that. I think that's really cute.
Well, do you know what's really fun is in the new book, Chillpreneur, I have a chapter about how marketing is like internet dating. And so I pulled the internet dating section out of Get Hitched and put it in Chillpreneur. And I say that in the book too. I say, I'm so thrilled. And I just think, oh my God, it has a second life. Nothing was wasted from that experience.
Interesting.
And some, yes, I'm so thrilled that it could go in there because marketing is like internet dating. It's like anything. But I was really happy that all of that work didn't necessarily go to waste. And, people listening, you might be on your third practice business. None of that goes to waste either. You know, you can always use those skills in your next business until you refine and find the thing that you're really supposed to do.
Well, that's an encouraging thing that I think is important to pinpoint too, because if people looked at you now, you're very successful internationally, you're well known, you've got lots of programs, lots of books out. And yet, when you talk, and I've heard you speak in other formats also, you aren't slow to mention other businesses and other efforts. So I think it's not unusual for people to have more than one effort and to have to keep trying before it really does come together. How many, just to encourage our listeners, how many efforts at business would you say from the time you were that brilliant child will you have made?
Oh, well, I know how many jobs I've had. I've had over
Okay.
50 jobs. So I know that. That's very indicative of entrepreneurs too, because we're before you know about entrepreneurship, you think you're just going to find the perfect career. um, I would say at least 20, which doesn't sound like a lot, or it sounds like a lot depending on where you sit. But you know, I can even think of some of the ones I had as a kid where I was like, oh, I'm going to sell horse manure, and I got all my friends to come over and shovel horse poo, and then I never got around to selling it. So a lot of those early efforts were about starting businesses but not finishing them. And now I love the fact that my husband is a completer finisher. So I often start projects and then he finishes them. Or I start the idea and then he does the paperwork to make it happen and calls our broker to get the loan and does the loan paperwork. So I think for some entrepreneurs, it's not about how many you've started necessarily, because that's all great, but it's about finding your right fit
Hmm.
in business. And sometimes it's even just a little shift or a pivot that makes a difference, where you're going, oh, it's the right industry, but the wrong model,
Hmm.
or the right model, but the wrong marketing, or the right marketing, but the wrong target market. And sometimes I see that people think, well, I've made my bed, I have to lie in it, and I can't change, or I've spent money on that, so I have to continue down that road. And there's just great freedom, and this is a lot what Chillpreneur is about too, is about there's just great freedom in finding your path of least resistance. Like,
Hmm.
oh, maybe this will be easier. And we resist that because it's not allowed to be easy. We've been told there's no easy road, to making money. And a lot of entrepreneurs I know, they overlook the obvious because it feels too easy. They're like, no one would pay me for that. So I'm going to try and do these other things over here. And that's what I did for a long time. I was like, well, no one's going to pay me just to inspire them because that's not a job except for Oprah. And I'm not Oprah. So I'll try, I don't know, selling this or doing this. And you can only do that for so long, I find.
Um, so let's shift before I have a few topics and questions I want to like wrap up the last part of our conversation with, but let's shift towards those sorts of questions about that point where you know you need to make a transition into what I call being true to yourself and maybe that chilling out part of the business. When I see your work and you ring completely true and authentic. And that is what I find so refreshing in life and in business when I see somebody who is so much themselves in their work. And for me, that is so true of you. When you are making a shift, like you're describing in Chillpreneur and in your last comment, is there a part of you that knows it's time? Is there a signal you get or something that clues into it?
I think there's a few. What I've seen from the outside is when someone starts to make a lot of mistakes in their business, that can often be a sign you just don't care as much anymore. Um, I see that as a massive sign. Also, when I think of my wedding business, my raw food, raw brides business, I just couldn't think of another thing to talk about. Like I ran out of things to talk about. I was like, I actually don't like weddings. I was like, I'm done with that. So sometimes a business is a season in your life. You know, how many people do you know have made a business when they just had a baby and they're like, well, I'm going to sell baby clothes. And then you get to a point your kids are 4 and you just think, I'm just not in that space anymore. And that's okay. So the thing that I really noticed this year is how many women, quite famous women too, have wrapped up their businesses, not from a place of quitting, but from a place of completion. And it felt so zen. They were just like, I'm complete. This is as much as I can do in this topic. And one example of that, I don't know if you know her because she is Australian, is Sarah Wilson, who has a business called I Quit Sugar.
I
And
do
she
know
helps
her.
people. Oh, okay, beautiful. And you saw that she wrapped up her business this year because
Hmm.
she's like, I'm complete. I've written all of the books I can write on this topic. I have spoken about this topic and I actually want to work on something else now. And she wants to work on zero waste. So some people said, well, why don't you just keep that business up? Because each business is like a baby. You know, it takes up energy. There's no point that you're like, oh, I've raised my kids now. They're just going to be out on their own because you still think about them. You still worry about them. And so she was like, I'm closing this down because I'm complete with this topic. And I don't think there's enough people honoring that. I saw this recently in one of my groups and someone's like, I don't want a bricks and mortar anymore. I don't want to shop anymore. I want to go speak. And I'm just like, so let it go. But
Hmm.
she can't because at the moment, she still feels like that would be admitting defeat or quitting or not being responsible or letting people down. And it's like, no, you're just complete. So I think you just have to honor that you're done with the topic. Or the other part of that is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe you just need a little tweak. Or maybe if you charged more money, you wouldn't be resentful about your business. So sometimes it's the pricing thing. Sometimes, and another thing, I know I go off on so many tangents, but Ali Brown, who is an amazing entrepreneur, I noticed that in the last couple of years, she's just shifted her business so much. And she used to try and serve everyone. She had 3 different levels of her program for beginners, for intermediate, for advanced. And she was trying to serve all of them. And I actually saw, she just posted it on her Facebook today. She said, I just work with high performers now. And when I just got that, it just released so much for me. Then she could, oh, I don't need to market to people who are beginning anymore. Someone else can fill that space. Someone else can get their apprenticeship with those people or focus on those people. She actually like got rid of 90% of her staff, 90% of her marketing because it didn't work for that one target market that she had. And some might say that that was quitting those parts of her business, but it was just like actually doesn't feel good anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I really resonate with a lot of that too. It makes sense. And I think as we age, There are certain things that it's like you say, it's a season for us, whether it's a stage of life or age or whatever. And honoring that is so important. I agree.
And you can't be in summer all the time.
No.
You have to honor that sometimes you have a winter space, and that's the time where you go inward and you don't have to hustle. And sometimes that comes in a year. I would love to see us have that in a year where, actually have a winter space instead of being, which is ironic because my brand motto used to be, it's always summer in Lucky Bitch Land. No matter where people see me in the world, it's always going to be sunny. But I realized that internally, that doesn't have to be true. I'm allowed
Mhm,
to have winter periods as well.
mhm. Yeah, and I always when I see your branding, I think of it as Australia because of the colors. So, yeah.
Exactly. But we do have winter. It's just that I don't show that
Yeah.
because I'm like, I want everyone to think of me always on the beach, even though I'm not.
Um, a couple ending questions. I could keep talking to you forever, but we'll reserve that for a future opportunity, hopefully. Um,
Yes.
how do you see your future self evolving? We've touched on concepts, but personally, how do you see your future self evolving?
Um, so I like to think of my life in decades. So my 20s were about exploration, working, trying different businesses. My 30s were very much about nutting in on my business, in very much business kind of years. I see my 40s definitely about raising kids. I'm in it at the moment, and setting up some real life pleasure things. Like actually getting involved in my community, like not just my Facebook life, but making friends at Willow's school when she starts school and meeting school mums and things like that. And then I definitely see my 50s and beyond all about philanthropy. I whether or not that means I still do my business so I can fund my philanthropy or I make a shift in my life. But I feel that very strongly, and um, you know, and I don't know what that means
Mhm.
for for business. I know I've got more books in me. When people say, "Come and speak and travel to me," and I'm thinking, I will, but in like 10 years.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I've got a long-term view of my life and business. And one of my role models for that is Louise Hay, who, was still speaking and writing books in her 80s, still serving and helping people. And I think if I look at Louise and see how she, spanned 8 decades, why do I think I have to do it all this year?
Right, right.
Like,
Yeah, it's true.
and I'm 39 and I'm like, I don't have to write all my books this year. It's okay. I
It's
can
okay.
let some things unfold because I don't have that experience yet to write that book.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. What, 3 things would you like people to know about you?
Um, I'm not perfect, and I obviously try and showcase that a lot in my life. Um, but even behind the scenes, like people often see me as very sunny and happy all the time. And I think that one person who doesn't see that all the time is my husband. He sees me at my worst. He sees me when I'm cranky or insecure or mean, even sometimes. And even to show that, even though I say to people I'm not perfect and I'm very transparent, but there's also, I'm a real person who gets cranky and sometimes yells at my kids and, has all those experiences. And then I think the thing that I would just always love people to know is that my heart is in the right place. I just want to help people, and I always have. And um, I hate to ever think that I would make someone feel bad or have my um, just my intentions be misconstrued. That's my I think my little vulnerable place where I'm like,
Mhm.
I just want to help people. Yeah.
Before we close, I'll ask one last question, and that is whether there's anything you'd like to say that I haven't asked.
No, I don't think there is. And um, you know, I I am really proud of this next book, and people can find it now. It's, Chillpreneur, wherever books are sold. And I am really proud of it because I realize now that this message of just letting things be easy is just going to be such a big thing for me going forward. And it also means it's something that I have to role model. And I try and, but I'm still learning to be a chillpreneur myself. So that's, I think, what people, that I want people to hear, that, I have my money book. I'm still a student of money. I have to work on it all the time. I have my new business book coming out, but I'm still learning all the time. And you will always, always have something to learn. It's just a game. That's it. We're all learning.
Well, I'm proud to be learning with you. So thank you. Thank you for today and
Thank
thank
you.
you for the journey. And we'll have all your links in the show notes as well to your courses and to you and everything. So thank you.
Thank you so much.